very good sign. Exactly what you want coming out of the convention.
It is the polling news about the Harris-Walz campaign that Democrats had been hoping for.
New numbers from USA Today and Suffolk University show Harris ahead by 5 points, 48% to 43%.
The same polling organization in June found Biden behind Trump 41 to 38. That's an 8-point swing in 2 months. The Harris surge is even stronger in specific demographics. In June, 18 to 34-year-olds favored Trump by 11. Now they are with Harris by 13, a 24-point swing. With Hispanic voters, it's an 18-point swing. Among black voters, the movement is plus 17.
Hispanic number, Latinos, is super interesting because this is a group that Trump and the Trump team has really done a ton of outreach to. And it is a group that you have seen some trends in certain states that has been leaning sometimes more Republican than they have been historically Democratic. What this means, too, and you see this in state polls, which are much more interesting to me than national polls, is that some of the states that seem to be off of the competition lane for the Democratic ticket, like Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, are back in competition. And that's a very good sign for the Harris-Walz team because they have more maps to get to 270. And it's not just the blue wall, even though the blue wall will still be pivotal.
Indeed, if you look at several battleground states that Donald Trump was winning a month ago with margins outside of the 3-point margin of error, now the states are essentially even. Arizona, Harris +1. Georgia, Harris +2. Nevada, Harris +2. North Carolina, Trump +1. So what has changed? Well, polling experts and analysts say the biggest difference is that a month ago, there was a larger number of double haters, that is, voters who were against both Trump and Biden. In every poll, there was also a sizable contingent of undecided voters. The newest data shows Democratic voters coming home, as well as Democratic-leaning voters coming home. Undecided voters are also moving towards Harris-Walz, and some voters who had been leaning towards Trump are now undecided and available for Harris-Walz to attract. There is another group that seems to be highly energized for the Democrats, and that is first-time voters. Analysts say there has been a tsunami of new voter registrations among groups that traditionally favor Democrats. And this wave is far outpacing new voter registrations from 4 years ago. Here's part of the report from CBS News.
Among young black women, registration is up more than 175%. You heard that right, more than 175% in 13 states. That's compared to the same time in 2020. This, according to the data firm TargetSmart. Registration has also increased among young Latinas and black Americans.
It's incredibly unusual to see changes in voter registration that are anywhere close to this. I mean, to remind people, 175% is almost tripling of registration rates among this specific group. You just don't see that sort of thing happen in elections normally.
To be fair, Republicans are also targeting new voters and trying to register people in certain demographics that might favor Donald Trump. But by all accounts, Democrats are far outpacing Republicans on new voters. And survey data shows Donald Trump seems to be his own worst enemy. Voter focus groups and polling have found that most voters are now turned off by Donald Trump's instability and personal attacks. Trump has repeatedly targeted women, particularly women of color, who Trump often describes as nasty. Here's a supercut put together by CNN.
She was nasty to a level that was just a horrible thing. She was probably nastier than even Pocahontas. By the racist Attorney General of New York State, Letitia Peekaboo James. How about low IQ Maxine Waters?
Omarosa is obviously the ultimate villain and the nastiest. I think it's a very nasty question when you ask continue in a very hostile, nasty tone. What a stupid question. But I watch you a lot. You ask a lot of stupid questions.
And never mind the verbal insults and name-calling, Trump is also a frequent user of social media. Just this week alone, Trump has posted QAnon themes and reposted vulgar, misogynistic attacks on Kamala Harris. Here's Trump supporter David Urban.
John, it's terrible. What Donald Trump should be doing, and you know, I've shared this with him, and I'll share it again with him every chance I see. Stick to the issues. If you want to attack Kamala Harris, please let's do so, but on the issue of immigration, on the porous border, on the failed economic plans of the Biden-Harris administration.
But even that line of attack, the economy, is becoming more difficult for Trump and the Republicans. And that's because the U.S. economy keeps doing well and growing fast. The headline on this day from Mediaite was, "Economy grew more than expected as stock market surges to another record high." And the Republican claim about Democrats raising taxes on the rich and thereby hurting the economy is undercut by history.
You heard it when President Clinton was running, when President Obama was running, when President Biden was running, that these are radical ideas that Democrats are pursuing. But if you just look at the scoreboard over that time period, out of the 51 million jobs that were created during that period, 50 million came under Democratic presidencies. And if you look at the stock market specifically, since you asked about that, the average annual return under Democratic presidencies have been higher than under Republican presidencies. So I really think this idea that Democrats are pursuing radical policies is a myth that's being perpetuated largely by very rich people who like the fact that Republicans will cut their taxes and Democrats won't.
It all adds up to a Harris-Walz post-convention surge. And with less than 10 weeks until Election Day, Democrats now appear to be in a better position than Republicans. To be clear, analysts say the race is still relatively close, and both campaigns will soon have to make some big decisions about where to focus the candidates, resources, and ad dollars. Here again is Jen Psaki.
And some of those states, they're not all created equal. Georgia, for example, where Harris and Walz are doing the bus tour right now, is arguably a better state for them than, say, North Carolina. And Democrats definitely want to win North Carolina. North Carolina is a state where they're competing. The governor there is like 20 points ahead. The Democratic candidate for governor is 20 points ahead of the Republican. But it is a harder state because in some ways it's more expensive. The demographics are not as strong for the Democrats as they are in Georgia. So they still have to make some decisions between these states.
And remember, the final decisions can be huge. Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump in 2016 because her overconfident campaign ignored Wisconsin down the stretch, lost it, and gave Trump an electoral college victory. Every battleground state can be complicated, and despite record amounts of money raised, there's still a finite amount of time and resources. Every dollar invested in one state is a dollar less that could be spent on an ad or in a get-out-the-vote operation someplace else. However, the 2024 election has clearly turned, and all the polls are now showing the Harris-Walz campaign surging and the Trump-Vance campaign losing ground. By the way, Donald Trump is now claiming God wants him to win the presidency, and his MAGA supporters are linking the survived assassination attempt to a biblical verse.
6:11 p.m. You read Ephesians 6:11 in the Bible. It reads as follows in part. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. 6:11, he was shot, and that's 6:11. Listen to that. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. I'm almost emotional reading it.
Many of us are emotional and irritated listening to Megyn Kelly because there are many verses marked 6:11 in Genesis, Isaiah, Ezekiel, and other parts of the Bible. And those verses, if you want to prophesize, suggest Donald Trump is going to lose and face damnation. Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from David MK, who writes, "Each day he, Trump, sounds like the Antichrist more and more." I agree. I look forward to reading your comments about the latest polls showing Harris and the Democrats widening their lead. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.